Unlike Gaul, this debate will be divided into 5 parts. Number 1, each candidate will have an opening statement. The status of my campaign as of today is, and they'll have 90 seconds to give us an overview of their campaign as of today. 2, each candidate will be asked a question by the moderator, me. 90 seconds to answer, and of course, as always, this question to each candidate will simply ooze fairness. Number 3, each candidate will ask the other candidate a question. The candidate who asked the question will have 30 seconds to ask his question. We've limited that given some of the previous candidates who gave a speech. And then the candidate will have 90 seconds to respond. 4, City Club members will have the opportunity to ask questions of the candidates. The microphone is right there. Sergeant of Arms Ed Root Mazer will be in charge. And we will have rotating questions. Each candidate will be asked the same amount of questions. And each candidate, when asked a question, will have 90 seconds to answer. The other candidate will have 60 seconds to respond. 5, and last but not least, each candidate will have a closing statement of 90 seconds, why I am the best candidate to become the next president of the Cook County Board of Commissioners. Last point, counting for the knockdowns at the bell will be the official City Club timer, Joyce Saxon. Joyce? She will have a 30-second card, a 15-second card, and then, of course, the awful one, stop. So, if Mr. Stroger and Mr. Parega can come up here, let's get going. You guys can sit for all your answers, or you can stand up here, whatever you want to do. It's fine. If you both want to sit, that's fine. Unlike other debates, given the crowd in this room, we don't have to give a background of who these people are. But if you didn't know who they were, you wouldn't be here. Mr. Stroger, watch this. Using Jay Doherty's business card, again, unbelievable fairness. We will pick the order in which the candidates will speak. Pick a card.
Pick a card. I'm taking.
Turn it over. You'll be second. Mr. Parega, you keep this as a memento.
All right.
Okay. There you go. The debate is going to begin. The first person will have 90 seconds to give his, by the way, we will reverse it for the closing. The first person, Mr. Parega, his opening statement, the status of my campaign as of today. How about a big round of applause?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to see everyone in this stress-free environment here today. I welcome you to this debate. For the past 4 years on the county board, and the past year and a half as I have campaigned for Cook County Board President, I have indeed talked a lot. So to help frame our discussion today and to provide some perspective on the choice before Cook County voters on November 7th, I'm not going to use my words. I'm going to read from a Chicago Tribune recent editorial. Following my joint appearance with Alderman Stroger before the Chicago Tribune editorial board last week, the Tribune wrote yesterday, quote, "The FBI invasion of Cook County on Thursday reminds us why November 7th matters. On that day, voters will decide who is best suited to drain the swamp of county government. Maybe voters will choose Democrat Todd Stroger, who has no experience in county government and whose public statements suggest he has no clue about what's wrong there or how to fix it. Or maybe voters will choose Republican Tony Parega, who articulated during a joint appearance with Stroger at the Tribune editorial board how disastrous Cook County government is, especially for the impoverished citizens forced to rely on it for health and other crucial services," end of quote. After urging readers to watch the podcast of joint appearance, the Tribune continued, quote, "After you see Stroger betray his lack of preparation on one huge county issue after another, after you see him repeatedly sidestep the urgent need to clean up and downside this mismanaged mess, ask yourself, what more do we need? Do FBI agents have to button up our coats, hand us our mittens, and drive us to the polls so we can demand decent government now?" End of quote. My name is Tony Parika, ladies and gentlemen. I have one question for those in attendance today and each and every resident of Cook County. Have you had enough? Yep. Thank you.
Our next candidate, Todd Stroger, 90 seconds, the status of my campaign as of today. How about a round of applause?
Thank you and good afternoon. This week we've seen the FBI come and raid the county building and cut off boxes of documents related to alleged corruption in county government. Like any citizen who saw this on TV or read it in the newspaper, this disturbs and angers me. So before we start this debate, I'd like to make one thing crystal clear. To anyone at Cook County government who wants to skate by and cheat the taxpayers, I've got 2 words for you. Quit now. Because when I get there, you will be terminated. Having said that, I think the voters need to know what's at stake in this election. Because there's a lot. On November 7th, we've got a choice between the progressive Bill Clinton Democrat with 15 years experience who has the backbone to make the changes necessary. Someone who shares the democratic values that make this county great. Quality health care for everyone, equal rights for every citizen, protection for working men and women, tax relief for homeowners. On the other side, you've got my opponent, a radical George Bush Republican on the far right fringe, the Alan Keyes side of the party, a man who won't hesitate to take away our rights. Make no mistake, if Tony Parika is elected president, there will be more guns on the street, criminals will have easier access to assault weapons, women will not have a right to choose, gays and lesbians will have fewer rights, and homeowners are going to pay higher taxes. My opponent is going to stand here today and ramble on about change and reform, about he's the man for the job. I ask you this, how can Mr. Parika call himself a reformer when he wants to turn the clock back on women, on people of color, on working people, on the principles that make this county great? The answer is simple, he can't. And in the end, the people can spot a phony. Thank you.
I thought we were going to keep the gloves on, Paul.
Okay. All right, calm down, calm down, calm down. For those of you new to the City Club, this is the kind of gentle debates we have. Will the wait staff, you have to, gentlemen, could you tell Kathy that no, the TV guys can't see, so could they stop clearing? Just stop clearing, please. Because we want to have everybody have a fair chance at this, even if the request comes from Andy Shaw. Okay. Part 2 of our 5-step approach. The candidate asks a question. Excuse me. The moderator asks a question to the candidate. It'd be a lot more fun the other way. Mr. Parika, first, my question is to you. You have 90 seconds to respond. Mr. Parika, you are running as a Republican candidate in Cook County. Which Illinois or National Party Republican do you most identify with?
I most identify with Ronald Reagan, our president, 2-term president. I think he's one of the principal reasons why I have joined the Republican Party in 1994. I've been a Democrat, and I knew President Clinton as well, and campaigned on his behalf prior to 1994 when I joined the Republican Party. But Ronald Reagan, indeed, is the model after whom I try to model my career, someone who has deep passion for the working men and women, someone who has been able to generate and garner support of blue-collar Democrats, if you will, those who work at the bottom end or the middle end of the pay scale, and also has been very forceful in his policies and ideas to move this country forward, to get it out of the malaise of the late 70s Carter administration, and to make United States respected again, once again in the world, both on the foreign policy front as well as the economic front. So he is the one that I would mention.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stroger, my question to you. You are running as a Democrat in this contest. Which national or state Democrat do you most identify with, and why?
Well, the national Democrat that I most identify with is President Bill Clinton. I think Mr. Clinton did a lot for the working people, He understood that there are certain needs that they have and have to be met by this nation. Also, he believed that we had to retire the debt. And I believe we have to have some fiscal responsibility when we're budgeting, but when we're doing that, we're not throwing away people. This is important to me. We have to be fiscally responsible, but we also have to have a social conscience and help people. And I tried to do that in my 15 years experience in government, and I think it's reflected in my record. And when I'm the county board president, I expect to be able to do the same thing that Mr. Clinton did, work responsibly in the fiscal areas and as a social agent.
Thank you very much, and my apologies to all you state and local Republicans and Democrats that just couldn't cut it. Thought we eased the tension a little bit. All right, step 3, moving right along. Step 3, Mr. Pareka, could you ask your opponent a specific question? You have 30 seconds to ask your question. Mr. Stroger, you have 90 seconds to respond. Mr. Pareka, your question.
Alderman Stroger, Alderman Bill Beavers, who served as your family's spokesman for a time during your father's unfortunate illness, and who has been slated as your father's replacement for his commissioner seat, said, following and explaining why you were going to get your party's nomination for Cook County Board President before you ultimately did get it. He said, quote, "We've got control of the votes in the city and the county, so we do whatever we want to do, all right? Remember that," end of quote. Do you support Alderman Beavers' view of county politics, and if so, how do you square that with your description of yourself as a, quote, progressive Democrat?
Mr. Stroger, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Well, I can't tell you what Mr. Beavers said or who he said it to. I wasn't there with him. What I can tell you is that when I decided that I wanted to try to be the county board president, I got on the phone and I called all the Democratic committeemen and I asked their support. And they asked me, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I understand that the county has an antiquated system. It is old, it needs change. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring energy, I'm going to bring new ideas, technology, I'm going to bring the experience that I have from my 9 years in the state legislature and 5 years in the city council and my 7 years as an investment banker. I'm going to make the changes that are necessary to make sure that the county runs well, that people trust the system, and that people think the county government is serving them well. And they thought that that was good enough for them, so they voted for me.
Mr. Stroger, you have 30 seconds to ask your opponent a specific question. Mr. Pareka, you'll have 90 seconds to respond.
Mr. Pareka, how could you have sold your vote? You sold your vote for $5,000. I'd like to give you an illustration of how scary my opponent's right-wing views actually are. When the gay games were coming to Chicago, Commissioner Tony Pareka withdrew his endorsement of the games in exchange for a $5,000 campaign contribution from right-wing zealot Jack Roser. That's no joke. You can read about it right here in the Chicago Sun-Times. It wasn't even a binding law. It was a friendly resolution, and my opponent didn't care. A day after Jack Roser wrote the check, he put a stop payment on it when he learned that my opponent had voted to welcome the gay games to Chicago. So tell us, Tony, how could you do it?
My votes are not for sale, and unlike you who have not participated in the manner that you should, both in the state legislature and in the city council, I have always voted my conscience. I abhor and stand against any discrimination on the basis of ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, or any other basis. I felt that we need to bring our community together and unify it in every way that we can, rather than balkanize it as the games have tried to do. So I have no problem with casting a vote of conscience on each and every issue that comes before the board, and that's exactly what I have done each and every time. I am not for sale. I do not change my votes based on anyone's request. I do what I think my district needs me to do, and the western part of Cook County that I represent spoke loud and clear on that and other issues, and I, as a commissioner, have an obligation to vote the views of the district, the 16th district that I represent.
Okay. Now, part 4 of the debate. It's going to get a little more interesting. Not that it's not interesting now. We have a microphone. Kathy Posner, raise your hand. first in the hearts of countrymen. There she is, she's the first one. If you want to ask a question, line up behind Kathy, and please, make sure you ask a question, don't give a speech, and last but not least, you must identify who you are. And if you're part of the campaign, please don't ask a question. We're going to try and make this as straight as possible with minimal amount of sandbagging. Thank you. Andy Shaw, once again on the scene. What's the bill? Big
While
question.
we're waiting for that to be set up, I want to remind everybody that if you want to watch this debate again, it's part of our contract with CanTV at City Club. I'm a board member of City Club, that we have to remind everyone that you can see any City Club event on CanTV. This will be broadcast on Saturday, October 7th at 7 o'clock on CanTV 21.
Your question, Ms. Posner.
My question is to Alderman Stroger. In your opening statement, you said if Commissioner Pareka is elected, quote, homeowners will pay higher property taxes. Right now, under the current administration, every single year I'm already paying higher property taxes. So how will staying with the same administration, which is saying, where you're also saying you're going to bring a higher quality health care, which is going to cost more money, how are you possibly going to lower property taxes?
Well, first, I am not the same administration.
You're a Democrat, so to me you're the same administration.
Kathy, you've asked your question. Leave the microphone alone, Kathy. I know it's a tough call. Leave the microphone alone. Don't.
There we go. Okay, I'll sit down because otherwise I'll have to respond.
I wonder if John Calloway would fight this. Okay. Please, this is serious stuff. Mr. Stroger, you have 90 seconds to respond to Ms. Posner's question. Go ahead.
I'm starting over.
Thank you. First, it's not the same administration. Whenever a new person comes in, they bring in the people that they think can do the job. And what I believe is you have to bring in the best management team possible. And when you talk about property taxes, I'm not planning on raising any property taxes. And we plan to keep the tax levy flat, as I think it has been for the last 7 years, actually. And my opponent has suggested that we raise property taxes on residential property so we can lower them on commercial property. We differ on this. I don't think we ought to raise property taxes at all. That is my stance.
Mr. Pareka, you have 60 seconds to respond.
The attempt at deception here today is absolutely mind-numbing. I have never advocated raising any taxes, and those fellow commissioners here who know me for the last 4 years, and I would invite you to our board meetings so you can learn about the proceedings at the county board, will know that I have never advocated for or supported any tax increases. In fact, I have been a champion against tax increase. I have signed a no tax pledge, which you did not. You have left an option open that you would raise taxes, and you're using a phony, false headline from the Southtown to try to justify the unjustifiable, which is to raise taxes. This is another attempt to bamboozle the voters of Cook County with guns, gays, abortion, and choice, and all of the issues that the county board has nothing to do with, to hide nepotism, corruption, increase in taxes, bloated bureaucracy, patronage hiring, FBI investigations, increased taxes, all of which you support and you're in the middle of. Now, you want to be on both sides of every issue. You're not going to be able to get away with this if you've been with your father for 30 years and learned that his knee.
Thank you, Mr.
Now you
Pareka.
have to answer for
Thank you, Mr.
that
Pareka.
administration.
Thank you. Next question is for Mr. Pareka.
Yes, my name is Christy Hefner. I'd like to build on what you just said and take issue with the characterization that the county board does not play an important role with regard to providing health care services both for poor women in terms of abortion and for people with AIDS. Having worked with Dick Phelan and President Stroger, I know the kind of important efforts that have been made to make abortion available through Cook County Health Services. and having been involved in building the Core Center, I know the critical work that county does in providing services for people with AIDS. So I'd like to know what your position is on pledging to preserve and increase those services to the people of Cook County.
Mr. Pareka, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you, Ms. Hefner. I appreciate your question, but you characterized my position incorrectly. I am never advocating cessation of abortion services at Cook County clinics or hospitals.
I actually didn't characterize your position, I asked for your position.
Okay, well then let me state my position. Thank you. I have stated repeatedly, and this is again another attempt by my opponent to bamboozle the public into switching attention away from corruption and nepotism and bloated payrolls onto these social issues. I have stated that I respect the United States Supreme Court decision in Roe versus Wade, that I would not change it. I would not issue any executive orders that would change the right to abortion procedures in county clinics. I think that the $1 billion a year that we spend on the County Health Bureau with 8,000 employees can be spent more wisely if we don't have people who are unqualified, patronage appointees who don't belong there, sucking up precious resources that should be going for people who have no place else to go for health care except to county health clinics. That money is being wasted. This is not a victimless crime. That $1 billion is being wasted on people who are doing absolutely nothing to provide services to the poor, and the poor are always used as an example of what we're trying to do here and who we're trying to protect. The poor are the victims here because they are being denied services and resources by all of those who are taking monies away from those precious hospitals and clinic services that need to be provided to the indigent in our community.
Mr. Stroger, you have 60 seconds to respond.
Well, my opponent has said many times that the county has nothing to do with reproductive women's rights. And as we all know, if we know our history, that President Dunn signed an executive order that said there will not be any abortions at the hospital, and President Phelan signed an executive order that said there will be. So we know that the president has the power to do it, and he has stated his position. He is not pro-choice. So I am pro-choice, and I have a record for my 14 years showing that I'm pro-choice. And I also have a record of trying to get funding for AIDS. So I have a record that I can run on, and I can talk about what I've actually done.
Question for Mr. Stroger.
My name is Jim Economos. I'm a beleaguered commercial property owner out in Bartlett, far suburban Cook County area. I had a question for Mr. Stroger regarding your office's use of, there was some reports on Channel 32, I believe, about your office using it, staff for campaign purposes. But then with your opening monologue, I also wanted to bring up an issue when you talk about Second Amendment rights. All the big cities, Washington DC, Chicago, have the highest murder rate because we have the most strictest gun control laws. In places like Florida, Texas, where they have concealed carry, the crime rates have actually gone down.
That's your question?
Okay, well, my question is,
You want his views on that?
what's your views? Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank
About
you.
your office.
Okay, there you go. You asked two questions. Let's try and limit it to one. Go ahead, Mr. Stroger, you have 90 seconds.
Let's see, on the first question, which was about, help me there, Paul.
Your office.
Using your office.
Oh, my office. Oh, as you can see, that
Fundraising.
went nowhere. That was just something that went right out the back door because it had no validity. The reporter came in and said he saw some things on the table. He didn't say he saw anybody doing any type of work other than city work. And in the end, my administrative aide asked him to leave because she was trying to do her work. And when it comes to assault weapons, you tell the people who work at county hospital that assault weapons don't affect the county. They see people come in every day, and they go from the county hospital, and then they have to go to the rehab center in Oak Forest, and then also the county has to pay for the prosecution. Sometimes they have to pay for the public defender. So when people are hurt, the county has to pay. And also, Superintendent Klein said since the ban on assault weapons was lifted, they've seen a 17% increase in them taking in assault weapons. So I think it means something. And if you're a leader, you have to stand up and you have to talk to Springfield and say this is what we should do.
Mr. Pareka, you have 60 seconds to respond.
Well, as Alderman Stroger pointed out, it was Democrat George Dunn who abolished abortions by executive order at the county level. And I don't think anyone who knew George Dunn could describe him as a right-wing extremist. So, you know, we have to be careful how we throw phrases and words around because they do matter. And again, this race is not about guns, gays, or abortions. Our views on abortion are identical. This is about trying to divert attention away from bloated payrolls, inefficient government, high level of taxation, and corruption that's endemic throughout the county system that Mr. Stroger here would simply perpetuate rather than reform. Under no stretch of the imagination can he recast himself now as a reformer in light of everything that we have read so far about the investigations involving members of his organization.
Thank you. Question now for Mr. Pareka. Step right up.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Betty Bowles with the Service Employees International Union. I'd like to know, gentlemen, I'd like to know your position on streamlining Cook County's budget. Are you looking at just the workers on the bottom end of the scale? Are you looking at workers midway the scale or the upper echelon of the upper part of the scale? How do you plan to streamline the Cook County budget?
Mr. Pareka, you have 90 seconds.
The way that I would streamline the county budget is by eliminating unnecessary layers of management. We have directors, deputy directors, assistant deputy directors, secretary to deputy directors, secretaries to assistant deputy directors. Way too many layers of management of people who do absolutely nothing to provide crucial services within the Health Bureau, within the Public Safety Bureau, or in the administrative arena. I have stated that I would not engage in any massive cuts, that I would not engage in any massive layoffs, but in fact would engage in reduction of payroll through attrition, because we lose 1,500 people each and every year, roughly. People who die, quit, die, retire, get indicted, go to jail. We would simply not replace them as quickly. So therefore, we would, over a period of time, reduce that payroll to about 21,000 and increase the number of nurses, doctors, pharmacists, frontline workers, clerks that we need more of, but we can't hire to provide services because the money is being wasted on political appointees who are, coming in 2 hours late, leaving 2 hours early, and taking a 3-hour lunch. Too many layers of management, too many people within the county government who are not performing as they should, and people like Gerald Nichols, who's making $114,000 to open envelopes, or Mr. Simone, who's making $80,000 to inspect picnic benches. I mean, these are kinds of things that we can no longer afford. We need to worry about the frontline workers and the services that we need to provide to the indigent in our midst, not worry about those who are making over $100,000 and doing nothing to deserve it.
Thank you. Mr. Stroger, you have 60 seconds.
Well, I think we do have some duplication of services and management. I mean, we'll have to do some consolidation. The county can't afford it. We need to do some change. But we also need to do some zero-based budgeting. I think right now, the other elected officials are able to come in with their budget from last year and say, well, we need even more. Well, I think they have to be able to say that we need this because of this. Start right from zero. And everything has to be looked at. Everyone has to be looked at. And they have to justify their need. Because if we don't do that, the budget will get out of control. I think this is probably one of the best things we can do. But also we need to bring in a management team that can help us get to where we want to get to. And I plan to do that under my watch.
Thank you. Question for Mr. Stroger. Definitely identify yourself.
Jeff Berkowitz, host and producer of Public Affairs, airing every Monday night at 8:30 p.m. on Cable Channel 21. Tonight's show, state candidate for state treasurer, Republican nominee.
Jeff, you got your question. I got to teach a class this afternoon.
Alderman Stroger, as you know, for the last 3 years, the Four Horsemen, Commissioners Pareka, Claypool, Quigley, Suffredin, were joined by Democrat Commissioner Erlene Collins and the 4 other Republican commissioners to oppose the tax increases of your father, or proposed by your father, John Stroger, President John Stroger. Excuse me. If you had been there, Alderman Stroger, as you know, the Four Horsemen and others argued bloat, waste, and inefficiency. Your father argued
Jeff,
those tax increases were necessary.
That's enough.
Which side would you have been on, John Stroger or Democrats Claypool?
Jeff, we
Quigley?
got the question. We got the question. You're a sponsor, and you have, I would say you have as much time as Mr. Berkowitz took, but that would be unfair to your opponent. So go ahead.
Well, the answer to your question is that's history. I have a job as a city councilman, and that is the job I've done. And I think I've done it in a very effective way, and have voted on some tough budgets, and we had to vote on some layoffs, and we did that. We did what we had to do in the city, because that's where I work. But I think what I bring to the table someone who's worked with both sides of the aisle in Springfield, someone who knows how to get things done. My opponent is fighting with the people in his district. I've got 11 mayors in Proviso Township who are with me, and they are Republicans and Democrats. But I know how to work with people to get things done. I'm not trying to push anything down anybody's throat. I want to work to make sure that the county is served well.
Mr. Parika, you have 60 seconds to respond.
If Alderman Todd Strozier was Commissioner Todd Strozier, he would have voted for every tax increase that ever came along on that county board, and had no mistake about that. I have worked over the last 4 years, 3 budgets, to stop almost $400 million in tax increases. The only one that passed was a cigarette tax, and I worked with 4 Democrats and 5 Republicans working together in a bipartisan fashion to get that done. I fought the battle to get the Suburban Tuberculosis and Sanitarium District abolished. First time in history that a line item was removed off of everyone's real estate tax bills in suburban Cook County. I have been an anti-tax person on that board and have worked diligently to balance the budget, including introduce a 2% cut budget amendment, which was ultimately passed, even though everyone said that the world would come to an end if we didn't pass a tax increase of $110 million that year. Not only did we not pass the tax, we increased the budget by 2%, and I would argue that the government is better as a result of that, not worse, and that the services have improved.
Thank you, Mr. Parika. Question now for Mr. Parika.
Yes, my name is Anthony Cole. I'm Vice President of Haymarket Center. I have a question around alcohol and substance abuse services provided by the county. Just in case you're not aware, we have over 333,000 hardcore drug addicts just in Cook County. The Roosevelt University recently released a study that showed that the state of Illinois, particularly around Chicago area, in Cook County, is number 1 or number 2 for heroin-related deaths, and also for heroin-related emergency room admissions, many of which are going into Cook County. What I'm curious about is whether you're willing to commit additional resources, and particularly in light of the fentanyl-laced heroin and fentanyl-laced cocaine and that type of thing, to increase resources so that people can get treated as opposed to dying on the street from their addiction.
Thank you. 90 seconds to respond.
Yes, I would increase resources. I believe that we need to classify and identify self-abusers from our county jail that has, on any given day, 10,000 detainees sitting there. People who are habitual alcohol and or drug abusers, self-abusers, should be removed from the system and not kept in a county jail at $70 a day, but in fact should be sent to Haymarket Square or other Catholic charities and other faith-based or community organizations where they can be given treatment, job skills, and be taken care of to get them back into the workforce. We're spending way too much in our jail system. I find it also ironic that in Cook County, with 170,000 millionaires, the richest country in the world, we have the second largest county here in the country, the United States of America, that we have the kind of pockets of poverty on the south side and the west side of the city in particular. And when the county budget of $3.1 billion with 27,000 employees provides no comprehensive economic development plan, no jobs, no economic initiatives that would create jobs, that would teach people how to fish rather than give them fish. We've got problems here that we have the money and the personnel to solve. What we have a deficit of is imagination, discipline, and drive and determination to get it accomplished, and we need to change that through elimination of corruption and having more resources put in those areas.
Mr. Strozier, you have 60 seconds to respond.
Well, unlike my opponent, I have 15 years of actually getting funds for substance abuse. I'm proud to say, as a state legislator, I got funds for the substance abuse centers in my district, and as a alderman, I did the same. And I fought for that, and also fought for the same things that he's talking about now, that he's talking about that he wants to do. I've done it. I have the experience. I've done what he'd like to do. He's had his experience of 3 years, and I guess he hasn't been able to do anything yet, but you can be assured that you'll read what I've done in the next few weeks.
Thank you very much. Anthony, thank you. Seeing no more questions from the membership, we move to step 5 in the process, and that is the closing statement of each candidate. Give them a chance to get their notes together. The closing statement is why I am the best candidate to become the next president of the Cook County Board of Commissioners. Mr. Stroger, it is your turn to go first. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. I believe as more and more voters examine my record of service in comparison to my opponents, they will determine that I am the best candidate for this job and I am the most well-rounded choice to serve as county board president. I have 5 times as much experience in government as my opponent. I have chaired the labor and local government committees in Springfield, and I'm not interested in simply making wild and irrational statements to attract headlines, but rather bring bold new leadership to county government. I will ensure that all citizens will have access to quality health care and improve public safety, and I will help restore the public's confidence in government. We've already started proposing specific steps to remake county government. I'm committed to standing up for the uninsured, whose numbers are growing by the day. I will ensure the equal rights of all citizens. I will protect the interests of the working men and women of Cook County, and I will work to get guns out of the hands of criminals and make our streets safer. My opponent is hell-bent on carrying out the right-wing Republican agenda, and he has consistently flip-flopped on positions of key issues that reveal that he cannot be trusted. He's a threat to raise your taxes. He's a threat to eliminate women's right to choose. He's against gay rights and civil rights, and he won't keep assault weapons off the streets. Is this the person we want responsible for one of the largest counties in the United States? I don't think so. On November 7th, Cook County voters need to make their voices heard. I believe that my experience and integrity will help make a better county government for all of us. I humbly ask for your support and for your votes.
Thank you. Round of applause. Mr. Parega, you have 90 seconds. Why I am the best candidate to become the next president of the Cook County Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Ladies and gentlemen, this is perhaps one of the most important elections that you will face and all of us will face as Cook County residents in a long, long time. The contrast between the candidates could not be any clearer. I came here as an immigrant at the age of 13 years old, not speaking English, having lost both of my parents by the time I was 11 years old. I worked my way through high school, several jobs, college, law school. I set up my practice and been a practicing attorney for 23 years, running 3 offices with 15 employees at one time. I'm a real estate broker. I have a real estate company. I ran for the county board because I am passionate about government. I am passionate about politics because I want to give back to the society that gave me everything that I have, that made me who I am. I've been poor, I've been homeless, I've been hungry. I have not been a child of privilege as my opponent has been, where a powerful political father gave him every job that he ever had in the state legislature, in the city council, and now he wants to take over the county board government. Have we had enough indeed? Or are we going to perpetuate a monarchy, transferring power from father to son without any regard to the democratic process? This is not about gun, gays, or abortion. This is about common sense. This is about protecting the poor, who are the victims in this budget abuse process, this taxation that's driving businesses out of Cook County, this denial of services to the poor that have no place else to go. This is indeed a clear choice, and I ask you to check our website, votetony06.com. Look at our positions. I don't need on-the-job training. I've been there for 4 years. I know the budget. I know the facilities. I don't have to have a blue ribbon study group. I know what needs to be done. I know where the bodies are buried. I need your vote. Let's get it done on November 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Parega. On behalf of the City Club of Chicago, first your honorariums. 2 City Club mugs.
Thank you.
I know fundraising sometimes gets kind of rough in these troubled times, and perhaps you could, have people on the street filling it up. Just stay away from the federal building.
Don't worry, I will.
On behalf of the City Club of Chicago, how about a big round of applause for both of you guys?